Is there no virtue among us? If there be not, we are in a wretched situation. No theoretical checks, no form of government can render us secure. To suppose that any form of government can secure liberty or happiness without any virtue in the people is a chimerical idea. For if there be sufficient virtue and intelligence in the community, it'll be exercised in the selection of these men, so that we do not depend upon their virtue, we do not put confidence in our rulers, but in the people who are to choose them. This statement, articulated by James Madison as he sought to describe the only pathway for maintaining a free and prosperous nation, is as true today as it was over 200 years ago. Now, many of you may be wondering what is meant by virtue. What's the definition? Well, the dictionary describes it as being moral excellence, goodness, righteousness, or conducting one's life to moral and ethical principles, something we can all aspire to. Yet if this same question were posed to our nation today, would we have a favorable response? Just a year after Madison's speech in front of a joint session of Congress in 1789, America's first president delivered his inaugural address to an impassioned audience. Only 6 years had transpired from the American victory over the British, making the new president determined to remind the nation that their efforts to secure liberty must remain intact. Towards the end of his first official speech as the new leader of the free world, Washington declared, quote, "The preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally staked, on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people." If you listen carefully to this declaration, you will notice that when it comes to the preserving of a free nation, Washington leaves its security in the hands of the American people rather than its government. And for those who have read the U.S. Declaration or the Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, you will know that this fact has long been recognized. It is we, the people, not bureaucrats or politicians, who have been chosen to secure the sacred fire of liberty and to maintain a nation founded on the principles of individual liberties and a free market economy. Yet has the American public taken this obligation to heart? With the emergence of the Tea Party and the 9/12 Project and other free market groups, it may seem as though the American public has decided to band together and rise up against a tyrannical government. But have we truly done so? Or have we simply shifted our trust from one government official to another, with a blatant disregard for the overall belief system of the average American voter? I make the case today that with or without Republican victories, our struggle for freedom will forever remain so long as we rely on elections while refusing to see the need for maintaining an informed, educated, and principled electorate. What is made clear from the insights of our founders is that our liberty depends not on politicians, but on our ability as a nation to choose those best fit for office, and to ensure that we demand a limited government once these individuals have taken office and all throughout the year. So let us consider, have we maintained a virtuous society as described by Madison, or have we as Americans become incapable of defending our sacred liberties and advancing a free market society because we have become too reliant upon government and are no longer willing to bear the cost of freedom? To answer this question, let us look at where a majority of Americans stand on many of the issues affecting a free society. Let's begin with free trade. From its very name, you may assume that this will be a firmly held belief in the world's freest nation, and one which has always maintained faith in the invisible hand as described by the late economist Adam Smith. Yet a large number of Americans increasingly call to enact trade barriers in order to, quote, protect American jobs from individuals overseas. Casting aside its inherent benefit for consumers nationwide, many Americans also scorn Walmart for providing abundance of merchandise from countries like China rather than the United States. The irony, of course, is the number of individuals who shop and save at these stores while condemning the very practices that benefit them. We seem to have forgotten that an American looking for a job is at the same time a consumer. Can we declare that we are a virtuous nation if we simultaneously attempt to restrict the freedom of our citizens from conducting business with whomever they choose? Secondly, let's look at our system of entitlements. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are all products of a recent generation, which have maintained consistent support from the American public, despite the fact that their unfunded liabilities range in the trillions. According to a Times CBS poll conducted last April, 76% of respondents believed that government programs such as Social Security and Medicare were worth the cost to taxpayers. When looking at Tea Party respondents alone, 62% agree with this premise. Yet, none of these programs support morality or freedom. Would a virtuous citizenry believe it is righteous to forcibly take from one to give to another? Would they believe that encouraging a nation of dependency was either just or kind? Americans have forgotten the virtue of self-reliance and independence and have instead traded it for a little bit of government security as promised by our politicians. Considering the viewpoint of the average American voter on these issues, are we surprised when members of both parties cast their support for things such as entitlement programs, pork barrel projects, and subsidies? As we all know, we were never intended to be a democracy. But at the same time, it is clear that a majority of those heard tend to rule. So if we truly wish to change the direction of our country, we must begin by continuing after the election throughout each and every year, win or lose, and get to work on informing the public. What does morality and freedom and individual rights truly mean? This, of course, begins with educating ourselves. So I encourage each and every one of you here today to either join an educational book club, visit your local free market think tank, attend a Liberty on the Rocks and get to know others there, or find a reliable source on the internet. But most importantly, overall, never cease to learn or to educate. We must ensure that a majority of Americans vociferously support the practices of individual rights and freedom, both in principle and practice. Only then will we maintain a virtuous citizenry which is capable of upholding liberty. Now, in this present crowd, I do not feel the need to remind you all that the future rests in our hands. But I will add that I do hope that you won't ever forget it. Thank you.